So here we go, the day after Christmas. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you happen to be in the world today, welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, have a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening somewhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University, at Coffee Talk Live at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. And you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off, I naturally try to read as many of the comments in the live portion as possible for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see, so that you can keep up with what's going on. And I'll say hello to some of the people that have chosen to chime in and say something so far. I see Helter has joined us here today, as well as Dragon. Brian is here. I don't know how many people are going to show up the day after Christmas, but it is what it is. Here I am. Here I am, rock you like a hurricane, as it were. Looks like we're being a little choppy here with Restream. Hopefully it catches up, because you know how Restream can be. Not that StreamYard was any better when I had StreamYard, and now StreamYard's more expensive as well. Because yes, I'm not funded here. I do pay for these things. Joined today by a single feline. Granny Smith is in the office with me. Maybe we'll get an appearance from her later, but in the meantime, as we get ready to roll off into the realm of the ridiculous and take a look at what is going on in the world today. More sabotage from the executive branch, perhaps? Let's see. CBS News article will pull up first. Biden's 50 bills into law on Christmas Eve. I wonder if he knows what he is signing. I wonder if he knows or really understands at this point. It's already been officially declared that he is in cognitive decline. They can't hide it anymore. They do admit it. I had speculated several times that, I wonder how much of it is actually cognitive decline, and I wonder how much of it is so that he can have plausible deniability after leaving office, so that no one can accuse him of anything, because he can't go into court. You can't go on trial if you have cognitive decline, because you won't understand what's going on. That's how come Ron Jeremy wasn't brought back to court, because he's got dementia. But yeah, President Biden signed 50 bills into law on Christmas Eve as the year and his time in office draws to a close. He really ought to be out already. The bills that Biden signed include socialite and activist Paris Hilton's bill to protect teenagers living in residential treatment facilities, a bill setting anti-hazing standards on college campuses, and a bill preventing members of Congress from collecting pensions if convicted of certain crimes. Don't those things already exist? Just off the top of my head here, don't those things already exist? And I noticed this a lot from governors and from presidents even. They sign bills into law that really just reinforce something that's already on the books, because there's already laws about hazing in colleges. I remember hearing about that kind of stuff in the 80s because of the occasional accidental death from somebody being locked in a trunk or something stupid. And teenagers in residential treatment facilities, man, I remember I used to work for the Juvenile Justice Authority in a YRC2. You'd be surprised how protected they are. Says Hilton is the force behind the Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act, which passed the House and Senate last week, because Lord knows it was perfectly legal to abuse children in care facilities, right? The Legislation creates a federal work group on residential programs to oversee the health, safety, care, treatment, and placement of minors in rehab and other facilities. So more bureaucrats, basically, to oversee the bureaucrats that are already doing this. Gotcha. The new law is personal for Hilton, who has tested as a teenager in Paris. Another measure the president signed with corruption from receiving their retirement payments. Isn't that already a thing? Previous law allowed members to continue to receive checks only after the exhaustion of appeals. The new bipartisan law comes after Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey was found guilty this year of using his political influence to benefit businessmen and foreign governors in return for bribes. So does the law make it so they can't appeal anymore? The Stop Campus Hazing Act requires higher education institutions to disclose incidents reported to campuses or local police authorities in their annual security reports. The new law also requires schools to teach students about the dangers of hazing, among other things. Don't they already do that? Again, I remember a lot of hullabaloo in the media back when I was, back in the 80s because of, incidences with alcohol-related deaths, alcohol poisoning, or like I said, I remember one about somebody being locked in a trunk and suffocating. This is stuff that's been going on for decades. So did they add to it? Brian says that's totally going to stop hazing. Yeah, sure. Alan says, I work at a college. Yes, we already have anti-hazing. Yeah. So it's just more bureaucracy. Dilo has joined us, as well as Anarchy and Christina. And Christina says apparently they criminalize children for reporting abuse in those facilities. Criminalize children for reporting abuse. Because again, I don't know about a live-in rehab, but again, I worked for the Juvenile Justice Authority. I ran a YRC2 youth residential center level 2. We had the clients lived at the facility. It was basically a halfway house, for a lack of a better description. They get rights coming out of their ears. Now, in mental health, they don't. But this isn't going to affect mental health, because we had clients that came from mental health facilities where stuff went on you wouldn't believe. You have zero rights in a mental health facility if you're locked in for that. But for drug rehab residential, that I'm not sure about. But I know that it can't be any worse than at the juvenile correctional facilities. Kruger has joined us. Glad you could make it today. It says on Monday, the president granted clemency. I was going to get to this. 37 out of 40 federal inmates facing death sentences, commuting their sentence to life in prison. The move prompted both consternation and praise. Biden also vetoed a bill on Monday that would have created 66 new federal judgeships, and we read about that on Friday. I mean, that's just more sabotage. He kiboshed the creation of 66 new federal judge jobs to try to alleviate some of the stress, because the courts are all backlogged, because they surmised that it would give Trump an opportunity to appoint people. Well, yeah, but the jobs, some of those job openings won't even be available until 2035. So he might be able to put a few people in there one way or another, but it's not like he's going to be able to appoint all 66 positions. We got a decade to go for that. He'll be out of office by then. So that was just unnecessary, and they'll just pass the bill after Trump gets in office anyways. That's just being spiteful. That's just being spiteful and unnecessary as we get ready to go off here. Trying to stop a video clip from playing so that I don't have as much video choppiness as I'm looking at here currently. But we'll get to that here in a second. talking about those inmates because Trump had something to say about that. New York Post article, Trump's Christmas Day message to death row inmates granted clemency by Biden, go to hell. There's people in here who murdered kids, assaulted and murdered children that he gave clemency to. So they get to continue to be a public burden. And that's really the function behind the death penalty. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. I've talked about it before. From a biblical perspective, the idea behind the death penalty is to take a public menace and eliminate it. But with life prison sentences for people who were convicted of being a public menace, you're taking that public menace and turning them into a public burden because your tax dollars are paying for them to live in the prison. It's not as a deterrent to crime. It's to keep them from continuing to be a burden on society, even after they've been removed from society. That's the purpose behind the death penalty for real. For real. And Cougar made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Cougar. Goes a long way, and asks about Dusty. Dusty is adopted. Dusty was not doing well with the other cats. And so we did find a better home for her where she can be by herself with a family, because she'll do well like that, but she's not. But with the other cats around, even her brother Daniel wasn't getting along with them anymore. Which is unfortunate because Dusty was a sweetheart. But for her own mental health or well-being, it became necessary. But we appreciate that, Dusty Cougar, for making a donation to the channel. We need all the help we can get with the felines that we take care of. So back to New York Post article. President-elect Donald Trump refused to wish federal death row inmates granted clemency by President Biden a Merry Christmas on Wednesday, telling them to go to hell. The 37 most violent criminals who killed, raped, and plundered like virtually no one before them, but were just given, incredibly, a pardon by sleepy Joe Biden. I refuse to wish a Merry Christmas to those lucky souls, but instead will say go to hell. I agree, because there's some pretty vile crimes in that list. There's better people you could have given a stay of execution to. Biden commuted the sentences of 37 of the 40 men on federal death row Monday, a list that includes at least 5 child killers and several mass murderers. The lame duck president issued the reprieve, which reduced the inmates' sentences to life in prison without parole as part of his effort to ensure a fair and effective justice system. Yeah. Trump also took aim at China, Canada, and radical left lunatics in his Christmas Day message and re-upped his support for U.S. control of the Panama Canal and Greenland. And I'm going to get into that in a few minutes as well, because he had a few things to say about that were interesting, shall we say. His that the media is pretending to take seriously. And Cougar says, glad to hear that she's okay. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. So Dusty and Little Girl were adopted. Both of them very, very user friendly, as it were, very friendly with people. But other cats around, it just wasn't working for them. And sometimes you get that. Sometimes you get that with certain cats. And Cyberjack Senior is here, and I hate that because you try to do the best you can with them. And I wanted to continue to help Dusty. I just couldn't. So we found her a secure position with a single family. And Dental Misorder, it says Barbarous Reborn, or Barabbas, excuse me. Barabbas, biblical reference. Speaking of reborn, the same people who say capital punishment is inhumane are the same ones who call a fetus a clump of cells. Very good point, Dental. Very good. But a lot of people don't understand that. And the argument is always, it's not a deterrent to crime because, look, people still commit murders. It's not supposed to be a deterrent. Capital punishment is not supposed to be a deterrent. Again, it's supposed to make it so that person stops being a burden on the rest of society, period. If they're that destructive, they need to be removed. And that is biblical. That is biblical. As much as people want to ignore the Bible and say, oh, well, that's the Old Testament and that's cruel and blah, blah, blah. Oh, well. Oh, well. People who claim that Jesus changed, or Yeshua, Jesus changed the law, and that you should only read the New Testament, and then they don't even read the New Testament anyways. I redirect you back to Matthew 5:17, where Yeshua, that is Jesus, says in very plain language, I'm not here to change that law. That law will never change. Never change until heaven and earth pass away. And T-Bone is here, wants to know if we read a book called Snot Stew. I don't believe I have ever read that. And League of Smoke has joined us. League of Smoke has joined us as we move on here. A lot to talk about. Of course, I was not on yesterday. So what's Biden doing in the meantime? You might be wondering. Taking a nap somewhere? Taking a nap, perhaps? I'm sure he is, because he's on vacation again. Why not? Why not one more vacation? One more vacation on the taxpayer's dime. CBS News article, Biden heads to St. Croix for his final holiday as president. Why not? They're letting him go down the stairs? They need to get him an escalator for Air Force One. Be a little safer. Watch, hold on to that rail there, buddy. Be careful. Be careful. Here we go. President Biden and his family are heading to St. Croix in the Virgin Islands for a final holiday before he leaves the White House next month. The trip has become an annual one for the Bidens, who in the past have stayed at a wealthy donor's home on the island. Isn't that a violation of interest? Isn't that a violation of interest? Isn't Clarence Thomas under investigation for doing things like that? It's the third year in a row the president and his family have traveled to St. Croix for the New Year's holiday. Last year in St. Croix, Mr. Biden said his New Year's resolution was to come back next year. Oh, well, that didn't work out. He should have crossed his fingers. The president did not speak to reporters Thursday. He never does anymore, really. Before boarding Air Force One, Mr. Biden and his family usually largely stay out of the public view during vacations. Multiple family members are expected to join the president and First Lady Jill Biden on the trip. So you get to pay for the whole family to go. The island is 84 square miles with a population of 41,000 people. Highs are expected to be in the 70s and 80s during the president's trip. Must be nice. While this is his final holiday as president, Mr. Biden is expected to visit Rome in January and meet with Pope Francis. So the Legion of Doom is getting the band back together one more time. Earlier this week, Biden vetoed a once bipartisan effort to add 66 federal district judgeships. We talked about that Friday, saying the House's hurried action left unanswered questions. And on Christmas Eve, he signed 50 bills passed by Congress. And it's all red tape bullshit. It's all more bureaucracy and oversight of laws that are already in effect. It's a complete waste of time. Those 50 bills are the kind of crap that Trump wanted Elon and Ramaswamy to wade through and get rid of. When the president returns to Washington in the new year, he will have mere days before President-elect Trump takes his place on January 20th. How long is he going to be gone for? How long is he going to be gone for? White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said last week that Mr. Biden's goals before leaving office include further implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law and the CHIPS and Science Act, as well as lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Oh, please. More bullshit Democrat talking points. Paul says even Biden's clone is senile. Oh my God. Oh my God. And T-Bone says that Snot Stew is about two sibling cats growing up together. Oh, okay. Tuck says keeping Biden in power has probably done quite a bit for Alzheimer's research. There you go. And Eric says a holiday before his forever holiday starting on the 20th. If this doesn't infuriate someone, I can't help. Well, it bothers me. It bothers me because we're paying for it. And his whole family to fly out there again. Again, it must be nice. Unless I find out that he's paying for this out of pocket, but I doubt that if he's taking Air Force One. Tuck says Biden is constantly vacationing because his illness is incurable and will eventually take him. Yeah. He'll continue with the cognitive decline, but that's what he's doing. He is on his way to St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, or if he's not there already, there he goes. Some of the family, some young girls, some young Biden females. I don't know who they are. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Creepy Joe taking a vacation with the family, and you're paying for it. Yeah. Then we had Trump when he was in office and wouldn't even take his check. I believe he donated all of his salary because he doesn't need the money. Doesn't need the money. Meanwhile, suddenly, this is a USA Today article coming up, suddenly other countries that under Biden's administration refused to work with the United States on repatriating deportees are having a change of heart. Just like that. USA Today, Guatemala is now open to accepting Trump's Central American deportees. Really? Guatemala is open to receiving citizens of other Central American nations who are deported from the U.S. Three sources familiar with the matter said as the country looks to build a positive relationship with the incoming Trump administration. So hell, Guatemala will take people that aren't even Guatemalan then. There has to be a regional response. A Guatemalan official who requested anonymity told Reuters, and we want to be part of the solution. You want American tax dollars, and you don't want to butt heads with Trump's administration because you know Trump doesn't pull any damn punches. See, Biden was a pushover. Biden was a pussy. There, I said it. He made the administration look weak. He made America look weak, just like Obama made America look weak. Obama made America look weak and got a Nobel Peace Prize for doing it, for going around to other countries and bowing and crawling and apologizing for America being overbearing. And they gave him a freaking Nobel Peace Prize for that bullshit. Obama made us look weak. Biden made us look weak. To a world that when you step outside of the Western world and look at the rest of the world, understands strength. They may not like you, but they'll respect you if you're strong. They don't like America, and they're still not going to like America while Trump is president, but they will respect us. They will respect us because they'll be like, okay, at least this guy's not a pushover. I can understand him. At least. And this is proof of that right there. Guatemala, hell, we'll take anybody you give us as long as we're going to get along. Meanwhile, for the last 4 years, you told Biden to go jump himself, as it were. The U.S. has struggled to deport nationals from places such as Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti due to strained relations. That could prove a challenge for Trump, who has vowed to deport record numbers of immigrants living in the United States illegally. His team has already reached out to the governments of several countries to test willingness to take deportees from third countries. Many U.S. neighbors, including Mexico and the Bahamas, have said they do not want to receive deportees from third-party countries. Well, the Bahamas, I wouldn't send anybody to the Bahamas, but Mexico, sure, why not? In 2022, more than 40% of immigrants living in the U.S. illegally came from Mexico. accounting to 4.8 million of 11 million overall, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's reports. That was followed by Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, which together accounted for 1/5 of the total. Is that not counting the ones that are coming from from the rest of the world? Because we're getting them from all over the globe. Spectre is here. He says he ran all the way, but he made it. Well, glad you made it, Spectre, as well as Raccoon has joined us. Paul says they'll put them in straight in prison and charge America for them. At least they won't be here. And we're already giving them money anyways. So they may as well put it to good use. I mean, we're already paying Guatemala. We're paying everybody. Remember, last week we read that the United States has been paying Paraguay to put up walls around their borders. Meanwhile, we're tearing ours down during the current administration. What the hell kind of crap is that? If we're going to be sending money to these countries, we may as well get what we want out of it. We may as well get something that's going to actually benefit the United States instead of just hemorrhaging money that we can't afford. Paul suggests that Mexico deserves them. Well, Mexico becomes on the southern border the last line of defense before we have to deal with it, as is the same case with Canada on the northern border, because they're pouring over the northern border too. You just don't hear about it as often because it's not as much over the north, but they are coming in that way. They are coming in that way. It says Guatemala has been particularly proactive in preparing for a second Trump term relative to its neighbors El Salvador and Honduras, meeting with Trump's transition team members before he was tapped for Secretary of State, that is Marco Rubio, and the Conservative Heritage Foundation think tank about migration and mass deportation, border security, drug trafficking, and China. All right. Now, Guatemala suddenly on board. How does that bite you? Guatemala expects a significant increase in deportations in the fall based on the rationale that it will take time to ramp them up. We aren't ready for it, but we know it's coming, according to the Guatemalan government. Guatemala would prioritize Guatemalans for reintegration, the second official said, adding every country should take responsibility for its citizens, but also highlighting a regional pact among Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador that allows free movement. Guatemala's vision for deportees is to put their skills development in the United States to work in the private sector. And all that is it says, where are we? Highlighting a regional pact among Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador, allowing free movement. Basically, that if Guatemala takes Hondurans, Nicaraguans, and people from El Salvador, that if they leave Guatemala and go into those countries, Guatemala doesn't really care. Oh my God. All People says no way, most are from Mexico. The economic migrants from Africa, Caribbean, and China are never ever counted. Yeah, they're not all Mexicans. They're not even all from South America. We're getting it from all over the place. We had already read reports months ago that they were seeing that the greatest numbers of people were coming from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. So don't sit there and try to convince me now that they're coming from Mexico and South America. I don't believe it for a minute. No way. No way. They're coming from everywhere else. They're coming from places that have no business. They're coming from places where you wonder how the hell they even got that far. Hi, Monkey. Being joined by Monkey now. Here's Monkey. Monkey, of course, is the feline who, here he is, and he'll hold still for 2 seconds because he's squirmy as God knows what. Hi, Monkey. How you doing, buddy? Monkey is the one who was found in the engine of a car as a kitten and was burned. His paws were burned. Healed up very nicely now. Healed up very, very nicely now. He's in great shape. And Paul says it's all a psyop. The American dollar will crash next year. We will see. We will see how that turns out, right, buddy? How you doing, my friend? How are you doing, monkey? As we catch up here. And this is the part that they're trying to pretend like they're taking seriously. This is a Daily Mail article that'll be coming up talking about Trump's speech over Christmas. And this is obviously, clearly a lot of sarcasm. Okay? This is clearly a lot of sarcasm, but I'm going to go ahead and read this article. Again, this is a Daily Mail article. I've also seen a similar article in USA Today and so on, but you know how that works. Donald Trump's offer to people of Canada in a bid to take over. But listen to his wording. This is obviously a joke. Donald Trump has made his strongest bid yet to take over Canada, offering the Canadian people a 60% tax cut if they agree to join the U.S. and become the 51st state. The president-elect has in recent days suggested a territorial expansion into Canada, Greenland, and Panama, and has mocked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau by calling him a governor. On Christmas, Trump escalated his campaigns against these governments, the governments of both Panama and Canada. So listen to what he says. Merry Christmas to all, including to all the wonderful soldiers of China who are lovingly but illegally operating the Panama Canal, where we lost 38,000 people in its building 110 years ago. Correct. That was under Theodore Roosevelt after the French government abandoned the project because they had lost something like 18,000, somewhere between 18,000 and 22,000 workers, I think, in mudslides or to diseases. Always making certain that the United States puts in billions of dollars in repair money, but will have absolutely nothing to say about it. Anything. And this is Trump talking, of course. Also to Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens' taxes are far too high, but if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Their businesses would immediately double in size, and they would be militarily protected like no other country anywhere in the world. Likewise, to the people of Greenland, which is needed by the United States for national security purposes, and who wants the U.S. to be there, and we will. I mean, this is more of Trump's snarkiness. Obviously, he's not going to just adopt Canada and make it the 51st state. But they're talking about it in the media like this is serious. I mean, you can tell by his tone of voice that it's a joke. Trump recently posted that Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state and offered an image of himself superimposed on a mountaintop surveying surrounding territory next to a Canadian flag. See, Trudeau has suggested Trump was joking about annexing his country, but the pair met recently at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club in Florida to discuss Trump's threats to impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods. Well, you pay a fortune for if you're a Canadian receiving packages from the United States. I know a guy who's a big comic collector who's in Canada, and he actually maintains a P.O. box in Wisconsin and crosses the border to collect stuff because it would cost so much to have the stuff go through customs, and paying customs duties in Canada, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And they're so serious that if they ask him about anything that's in the car, if he gets stopped for some reason, he just confesses whatever he has on him because he knows that they'll tear his car to pieces. It's not unheard of for them to strip a car down to bare bones at the Canadian border and leave it like that. And that's the Canadian government looking to tax goods. It's insane. And Tuck says that's excellent trolling. Yeah, by Donald Trump. Absolutely. And here is Lucky. Lucky says, what did I miss? A lot, Lucky, but you can always do the replay. And All People says, what, in the last Less than 3 decades, Black economic migrants from the Caribbean, African, Afro-Latino lands migrated to the U.S. and outbred the earlier Black groups, or that would be the slavery area descendants. And Tuck says, wow, P.O. boxes aren't cheap anymore either, so that says a lot. Well, when you're getting like high-end golden age comics that are worth thousands a piece, and you don't want to pay whatever, I forget how much it was. It was some crazy number they told me. How much he told me that they charge for taking stuff across the border, the duty taxes. See if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it. Like, for example, here's one, Canada, category 2, clothing, 18%. For example, that's what I'm looking at here. Groceries, 7%. What I would be interested in is like collectibles, because that's what he was talking about. Personal collectible items. I don't see it, and I don't want to waste too much time either trying to find it. But it's something insane that it's worth it for him to do it that way, rather than have to risk it coming across the border and paying for the duty when he collects his items from the post office or wherever after customs is done with it. And again, like he pointed out, he says he's actually seen vehicles stripped down to the frame at the Canadian border by Canadian police and customs and duties officials searching cars. And they'll leave you like that. They will leave you like that. It's the law protects them. Bob Smith made it. He says, almost missed the live. Well, we're glad you made it here. And Paul says, let Canada sell it to America for $1 like the American government sold the Panama Canal. And Gordon says Trump promised to end birthright citizenship, chained migration, and deport DACA on day one. That was 8 years ago, but he did nothing. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when he gets in now. But obviously, this was meant as humor. The press is acting like it's deadly serious. Like it's deadly serious. He's actually going to take over Canada and Greenland. Panama Canal is a different story. We should have more of an investment in the Panama Canal for the obvious reasons. Never mind the fact that the United States finished constructing it, but if we're paying for it, we should have more to say than China does. And All People says, yeah, wow, the RCMP will strip a car, but let unknown migrants walk through untouched. Yeah, do you have anything to declare? That happened to us. Because the U.S. can be weird about that kind of stuff too. We weren't stripped down, but when I've mentioned this before, my wife and I were on a cruise like 100,000 years ago, back when we could afford to do things like that. And when we came back to the United States, they asked us if we had anything to declare, and we told them no, because we don't buy trinkets and baubles and things on, we just don't do that kind of stuff. There's nothing to buy. And they told us to go into a room, and we went into this side room, and there was people in there tearing luggage apart, and they pulled our luggage completely apart. And to look to see if we had anything, I guess, and there's nothing there that wasn't already ours. So we put our luggage back together and left. But that's what they do. And it's like, how much did that cost? That was my first instinct, of course. How much does it cost for you to have people do that to people who have nothing to declare to see if they're telling the truth or not about having something to declare so that you can tax them. Could you possibly make enough from that to justify doing that to people? Could you possibly? I don't see it. Anyways, we talked about this Friday, and this is how far it got. ABC News, the Starbucks strike is over. It's already over. They already ended the strike, because I had mentioned what a joke, in my opinion. We had, not yesterday, we had talked about this on Tuesday, because it was not on yesterday, because it was Christmas, that they said up to 300 Starbucks stores were going to have like some kind of partial walkout or a strike. And this was going to happen primarily in cities where they're in a union anyways, because you have to have be in a union to have a job, like New York and Illinois. And I had said, that's, Starbucks doesn't care. 300 stores, there's almost 33,000 Starbucks. And at least half of those are in the United States. What the hell is 300 stores? What the hell difference is that going to make? So the article reads, a day-long holiday strike against Starbucks ended on Tuesday with the largest work stoppage ever carried out by the company's unionized workers, involving strikes at more than 300 stores. What does more than mean? 301? 302? I wish they would give you a solid number instead of trying to pretend around it. In dozens of cities nationwide, the Union Starbucks Workers United said the company should be concerned because this is just the beginning, according to Michelle Eisen, a Starbucks barista in Buffalo, New York, and a member of the union's bargaining team. Yeah, this is just the beginning. It'll never go further than unionized states. The union and the company remain without a collective bargaining agreement at organized stores. Months-long negotiations recently broke off over a disagreement about economic issues, including potential wage increases. As workers fold up their placards and return to their jobs, the question looms, what happens next? Well, Starbucks doesn't want to pay them more because they know that the majority of their baristas are collecting tips. It's as simple as that. It's really literally as simple as that. And Tuck says, I will say Starbucks does smell nice when I pass by, and that I would only annex the west coast of Canada so we can travel more freely between Alaska and the lower 48 states. Okay. But yeah, I knew this was going to fall apart fast. They don't have support. 300 stores is completely negligible. You can close 300 stores for the day. You still have over 30,000 stores open. I think it was like 32,000 and change globally, with like 15,500 in the United States. 300 stores is nothing. I mean, sure, it affects the bottom line a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And then this strike was one of these mamby-pamby strikes where they walk out for a couple of hours and come back. Or they do a slowdown and some people go out and picket, and then other people are still working in the facility. It's one of those kind of things. I think Starbucks offered them a 1.5% increase. Yeah, here it is. Workers United told ABC News in a statement Starbucks had proposed no immediate wage increase for most baristas and a guarantee of only 1.5 wage increase in future years. Again, Starbucks looking at the fact that they know their baristas are living off of tips, that the salary doesn't even matter in comparison to what they make in tips serving customers. They know this. Meanwhile, Starbucks said in a statement the union had proposed an immediate increase in the minimum wage of hourly partners by 64%, as well as an overall 77% raise over the duration of a 3-year contract, which is not sustainable, according to Starbucks. That is rather a large increase. And John is here. He says he's a cat fan. Yes, you are. Granny Smith is in here keeping me company right now. Raccoon says, I visited Toronto where there was a Starbucks across the street from another Starbucks. I didn't notice it at first until I walked out. I thought I went into a portal or something. Yeah, they've made fun of that on The Simpsons. League says those liberal latte lickers just want attention. And here is Monkey. Excuse me, Monkey is joining us. He says he's a bit late. That's okay. And Tuck says it'd be funny if Starbucks raises wages and bans tipping, which has been done by public supermarkets, for example, do not allow employees to accept tips for many years now. Yeah, that would be something. Then they would all be crying. And here's number one Marvel fan. Glad you could make it today. Eric says maybe they will even get no tax on those tips via Trump. And that's something that he said he was going to try to push through in his legislation. We'll see if he can get that done. If he can get that done. But yeah, I didn't think that was going to last too long. And I didn't think it was going to affect Starbucks hardly at all. They're too big. They're too big. A temporary walkout or show of support at a handful of stores doesn't mean anything. Even though their union organizers say it's just the beginning. Yeah, okay. Just the beginning. Well, you know what? Your people still have families to feed, and they can only go on strike for so long, and then they're not going to be able to pay their bills. I've seen too many people going on strike hung out to dry, and the union doesn't support them overall. Ultimately, they don't get the support from the union. I've mentioned it before that while I was living in Illinois, there was, I think it was Toyota. I don't remember. But the dealerships, the mechanics division in those dealerships were on strike. They were on strike for damn near 2 years. Those guys were sitting out there, even in the winter, even in the cold, just a handful, like 5 or 6 guys, with a big inflatable rat whining about their wages, and that chain of dealerships did away with their service department. So you sat out there on strike for 2 years, getting almost no support from your union, and then lost your job anyway. How is this helping people? I just don't get it. I must be missing something. New York Post article. I caught this over the weekend, or this week. I thought it was interesting. Elon Musk urges supporters not to donate to Wikipedia after it spent $50 million on DEI. If Wikipedia just did its job, no one would have anything to say, would they? Elon Musk urged his supporters not to donate to the nonprofit that runs Wikipedia after the organization budgeted more than $50 million to spend on controversial diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Quote, stop donating to Wikipedia until they restore balance to their editing authority. And that's Elon Musk. The Tesla mogul and key advisor to President-elect Trump was responding to a post by the right-leaning commentator Libs of TikTok, who shared a pie chart that showed 29% of Wikipedia's $177 million budget for the 2023-2024 year or quarter was targeted for equity and safety and inclusion. I thought the function of Wikipedia's budget was to maintain their website, was to maintain the site and try to have some kind of balance or integrity with the information that goes on Wikipedia, because it can get sketchy. It can get sketchy. Sometimes Wikipedia is okay. If you're looking up something, you can read about, like if I wanted to find a synopsis on a movie, it is going to be mostly accurate. But some of the stuff you can't trust. Some of that stuff you just simply cannot trust. Why are they budgeting like a third of their yearly money? Because if they have 177, 29%, yeah, it's almost It's just under a third. 29%, a third would be 33 and a third percent. But $50 million for equity, safety, and inclusion. The Wikimedia Foundation site said that it set a goal of spending $51.7 million in its budget, 17.6% on equity, 11.6% on safety and inclusion. Infrastructure got the bulk of the $177 million, with 48.7%, followed by 22.2% extra on effectiveness. So basically $51.7 million that could be going into operations and integrity and stability on the site, they're spending on DEI programs. That makes no sense. That makes no sense, but that's where your donations are going. Quote, supporting equity represents the second largest part of our programmatic work, with grants and movement support representing the majority of the budget, with the equity goal, according to this nonprofit. DEI, a set of business practices aimed at diversifying the workforce, has been criticized by conservatives as a means to implement reverse discrimination that disadvantages whites and de-emphasizes merit. It's not just conservatives who say that, and it absolutely de-emphasizes merit. That's the problem. Tuck says he would never donate to Wiki. They've been doing revolting things for years. And there you go. And so Musk has caught wind of this from their report that apparently, again, 51.7 million of their budget, 29% of Wikipedia's budget is going into DEI programs. And so Musk said, please don't donate to these people. And I agree. Why can't you just run the Wikipedia site? Why can't you just run the website? Just put out your information. Just do that. I don't need you to preach to me. Leave me alone. Everyone else is already preaching to me. Everyone else is already preaching to me. Leave me the hell alone. It's nonstop. It's everywhere you go. You can't watch a football game anymore. You can't look at a billboard. You can't look at an ad on TV. You can't watch a modern program. You can't listen to music. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Sven says DEI hurts Asians most. Hurts Asians most. I don't know if you saw this or not. Hopefully you didn't. I didn't see it, but I thought this was interesting. And this is in Newsweek? No, it's an independent article. Excuse me. Independent article talking about Beyonce. Because Beyonce performed at Netflix's NFL Christmas Day halftime show. And they were curious. How much did she get paid? I'd like to know, actually. So how much was Beyonce paid to perform Netflix's NFL Christmas Day halftime show? So it is to be expected that securing a performance from Beyonce would come with a hefty price tag, but just how high? The 32-time Grammy winner, God, made her highly anticipated NFL Christmas Game Day debut with an epic first ever live performance of tracks off her last album, Cowboy Carter. Now, we've talked about Cowboy Carter before because now all of a sudden she's a country singer. And having some looping AI generated banjo music and singing lyrics that rhymes but doesn't make any sense somehow counts as a country song. Unfortunately, maybe I'm just old school. Maybe I'm just old school. But I've listened to some of that music and I've talked about it. I can't play it because YouTube will kill me. But I can't I can't call it country music. I can't even call it music. It's absolutely horrible. It's horrible. But she gets to go on this halftime show and sing this music. And she sang what jaw-dropping performances of Levi Jeans and Sweet Honey Buckin. I seriously doubt they were jaw-dropping performances. So here we go. The electrifying performance is reportedly part of a $60 million three-project deal linked between Beyonce and Netflix. The price for the first project hovered around $20 million, according to Variety. If we believe this to be true, then that's $20 million specifically for this halftime performance. So she got paid $20 million to pretend to be a country western singer. And is it just me, or does she keep getting whiter? Look at that picture. She gets lighter all the time. Gary says, how will Trump distract from not deporting anyone this time, perhaps a war with Iran? Well, we'll see. I mean, he may be in too deep to not deport people. We'll see how that goes. We can speculate on that when we get to that point. But again, $20 million to sing really awful country music. Again, the whole Cowboy Carter thing, looping AI banjo that's not even on tempo. It's really bad. It's just trying to look cute in a video in a cowboy outfit. $20 million. And now that Grammys aren't worth anything, 32-time Grammy winner, you don't earn a Grammy any more than you earn an Oscar or a Nobel Peace Prize or anything else. They just kind of hand these things out like candy to the people they want to give them to. I really don't think she's that talented. She's not that talented. She's not that good. She's a musical performer. And I don't think she's a very good one. Personally. And it goes on to talk about the football game between the Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't care about that. Oh, Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know who played. It's naming a bunch of football teams. I could really care less. But I'm not impressed with her as a singer. She's not bad, but she's not a singer of the caliber that she's made out to be, is what it boils down to. She's not a bad singer. I'm not going to say she's a bad singer, but she's not to the caliber that deserves the pedestal she's been placed on. And Sven wants us to deport all of the illegals to Iran. And Tuck says, I already didn't like her singing. The country stuff is somehow worse. Have you heard any of it? Like I said, I can't play it, but I have listened to a little bit of it. It's just really badly done. It's not even real music. It's computer-generated music that was orchestrated by AI. And you can tell, just like with the AI music provided by Restream that I play at the beginning of these podcasts, if you're listening carefully, you can catch that it's off tempo or that it skips a beat or slows down or speeds up. The AI can't quite figure music out. It can't keep the pace. Neither can the music on her album. So it's not even real. Raccoon says, that's crazy, 20 million. I wouldn't pay 20 cents to watch her. Well, even when she was free, nobody watched her. Because they had that free thing that they did when Hillary Clinton was running for president. Remember? And 2/3 of the stadium was empty. 2/3 of the stadium was empty. But with that, oh, Monkey is in the chair behind me. You can see Monkey. You can't see Monkey in that chair. He's too dark. Granny Smith. Granny Smith is still here, though. Granny Smith and Monkey stayed with me the whole time. But with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on Fistful of Radio, there it is, .com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Special thanks to Cougar, who made a donation to the channel today. Goes a long way towards helping our shelter cats. Always appreciated. Thank you, everyone else who was able to join us for the live portion. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and